Part 117. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1161. Fu Nanli hugged her and patted her back to help her calm down. A group of people were sitting on a big rock halfway up the mountain. In fact, ever since Wen Qiao made up his mind to be with Fu Nanli, he no longer wanted Fu Nanli's blood. Because if a couple donates blood, the probability of the child being born with hemolytic disease will be very high, and it may even cause neonatal death. Now that she is with Fu Nanli, she will definitely have children in the future, and she cannot take this risk. Therefore, when he Ziwei had the list of these people, she had to collect blood from these people and exchange them for her whole body. But now, the Zhao family is not cooperating because they are too backward and don't know that donating 600 milliliters of blood actually has little impact on people. Qinbei was worried. Master, the Zhao family is unreasonable. They let wolves and dogs out to chase people every time. What should we do? Although they are rich and powerful, they cannot use force. This is too rogue. Wen Qiao held his head, frowning, and after a long time he said, I just want to know what's going on between Zhao Xia and Ren Xiao. Has the conflict between them been resolved and Zhao Xia can talk to her properly? It's impossible to tell. But it's still a way. They went to the villages of Ren's and Wen Qiao's houses again, and they were really going to break their legs. The two children of Ren's family went to school, the door was locked, and Ren's electrician was not at home. After asking the neighbor's aunt, I found out that he had gone to the mountain power station to repair the wires. It was rainy and windy last night and the wires needed to be repaired. Wen Qiao ran to the power station again and looked at Fu Nanli with a more gloomy look. Fu Nanli touched her head, I will carry you when I go back, okay. Under the power station, Su Ce shouted, and Ren Qiao walked down and jumped down, why are you here again? Su Ce told the electrician about the situation. After all, this electrician is an electrician. He has a technical skill and needs to pass the certification, so he will go to the town and county for training from time to time. He has seen the world and knows that donating blood will not kill people. The Zhao family is very domineering. The blood is on her body and I can't tie her up. Don't count on her. She will definitely not donate blood to you. Wen Qiao asked him, I shouldn't ask more about your family's family affairs, but is there any misunderstanding between you and your wife? Speaking of this, Ren Qiao was a little annoyed and smashed the wrench in his hand, almost hitting Wen Qiao's foot. Wen Qiao was grabbed by Fu Nanli and took 2 steps back. What's wrong? Wen Qiao asked cautiously. The electrician wiped the sweat from his forehead and said angrily, it's okay. I have to go home to make lunch. The child has to come back for lunch at noon. Then he ran away regardless of Wen Qiao and the others' shouts. Wen Qiao held onto the tree and took a breath, I don't want to run away. Fu Nanli squatted down and said, I'll carry you. Wen Qiao held his forehead, aren't you tired? Fu Nanli was climbing mountains and running around like her, and he was indeed the one who worked hard last night. Why didn't he feel tired at all? Fu Nanli picked her up and walked back to Ren's house. Su Ce and others walked in front, looking back from time to time with complicated eyes. Fu Nanli laughed softly and said, your physical strength is still a little weak. Wen Qiao, my physical strength is already very good, but yours is a little too abnormal. How can Xiang control you if you are not a pervert? Wen Qiao bit him gently on the shoulder. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1162. Why don't you know the heart of a good person, little thing? I carry you on my back and you bite me. A group of people went to Ren's house, and it was noon again. The 2 children of Ren's family were eating in the yard. As soon as they arrived at the door, they saw Ren Qiao scolding his younger son. The younger son still had a mouthful of rice in his mouth. He was so scolded. Crying, the sister beside her whispered to Ren Chao not to teach her brother a lesson. Ren Chao seemed very angry and slammed the door and left. Wen Qiao and the others walked out from the house and entered the yard. The elder sister was comforting the younger brother. The younger brother seemed aggrieved. Dad has been very cruel recently. My sister touched his head and said, maybe Dad and Mom have been quarreling recently. It's okay. I'll just wait until Mom comes back. Wen Qiao stepped forward and said, why did your parents quarrel? Ren Tiantian met the sister yesterday. Seeing that she was pretty and friendly, she thought she was some friend of her father's, so she said, I don't know why we quarreled. I just know that my parents quarreled fiercely, and then my mother I went to my grandma's house and didn't come back for several days. Your father used to be very good to your brother? Hasn't he been very good recently? This was also analyzed from what I just heard them say. Ren Tiantian nodded, I don't know why, but my father has been scolding my brother every day these days. Won't I scold you? Don't scold me. Wen Qiao was a little confused. If the couple had a quarrel and Ren Qiao was angry and took it out on the child, then the two children should be scolded together. Why did he only scold his brother and not his sister? Is my brother naughty? Wen Qiao asked again. Ren Tiantian shook her head, my brother is very well behaved, not naughty at all. Wen Qiao saw that his younger brother seemed to be well behaved and cute. He was eating in a well behaved manner just now. Suddenly he was taught a lesson by his father. He cried very restrainedly and didn't behave at all. Such a cute and well behaved son, why did Ren Qiao bother to teach him a lesson? She really couldn't understand. After running around, they were also hungry, so they went to the guest house in the village and had some food. The owner of the guest house chatted with them while smoking, asking them where they came from and why they came to this small village. Wen Qiao only said that he was from Haikan, and the boss didn't pursue him. Wen Qiao asked him, that electrician's wife, why did the couple quarrel? The boss looked around and said cautiously, this is not easy to say. This is interesting, it sounds like the boss really wants to say it. Why is it hard to say? Is there any conflict between the husband and wife? The other grown men just listened, not knowing how to interrupt. That is to say, Wen Qiao is too straightforward, otherwise Lu Yuyu would have already found out about their family's Bhagavad Sutra, and would he still be running around for so long? Wen Qiao thought it would be better to take Lu Yuyu with her next time. Yuyu's ability to inquire about information was much better than hers. The boss hesitated and said, I heard that the electrician felt that his son didn't look like him, so he had a quarrel with his wife. Wen Qiao was a little dumbfounded, no wonder, it's right, this is right. So the electrician felt that his wife had cuckolded him and made him want to be his father, so he got into trouble with his wife? Doesn't look like him. It doesn't mean that the son must be like his father. For example, in her appearance, compared to Wen Jianmin and her mother, she is more like her uncle. How can there be any certainty in this kind of thing? But at least we know the crux of the family, and we have come here. Wen Qiao thought, if this number one problem is solved, will her problem be solved? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1163. In the evening, Wen Qiao and the others went to the elementary school in this small village. There was only an elementary school in this village. After junior high school, they had to go down the mountain to the town to study. There is a big pine tree in front of the school. Fu Nanli is leaning on the tree, and Wen Qiao is leaning on him. Su Ce clicked his tongue, the people here are simple, Fu Nanli, please pay attention. Fu Nanli hooked Wen Qiao's waist and glanced at Su Si. She's tired and can't stand, I'll hold her up. Our Akiao has always been in good physical condition. Why can't he stand still after walking for such a short distance? Fu Nanli became excited. Do you really want me to say it? Wen Qiao quickly covered his mouth and glanced at her uncle. My legs are indeed a little sore, mainly because I have been running every day these days. Su Si was confused, but he felt as if he understood what she meant, and became a little angry. At 4:30, the bell at the school gate rang, indicating that school was over. The village was not big, and the school only catered for grades 1 to 6. There were only about a dozen children in each class, and there were less than 100 children in total. As they came out one after another, Wen Qiao saw two siblings from the Ren family. The younger brother was dejected. Although his father didn't say it explicitly, children are always sensitive and can feel his father's anger, so he felt very depressed. Wen Qiao took a closer look at the siblings Ren Nian and Ren Tian. Indeed, the elder sister looked very much like Ren Qiao, and the younger brother did not look like him at all. Wen Qiao followed his sister and brother back home, just in time to catch up with Ren Qiao coming home. He took off the helmet on his head, and when he saw Ren Nian, he felt a little angry and scolded Ren Nian until Ren Nian cried. Fu Nanli only felt a headache. He came all the way, so he was asked to mediate with the neighborhood committee. He's really bad at this. Wen Qiao saw a woman cooking dinner in their kitchen and asked Ren Tian, who is that woman? Ren Tian was a little unhappy. It's Aunt Feng. After my mother returned to my grandma's house, she came to my house to cook every day. Wen Qiao rubbed her chin. Don't she want to cook at home? Her son is in junior high school and lives in school in the town. Uncle Feng died a few years ago, so, she is always at my house. Wen Qiao said, oh. Is this Aunt Feng trying to take advantage of this opportunity to rise to power? Also, although Ren Qiao looks a bit rough, he actually looks pretty good, and some people also like his wild man character. Wen Qiao went out for a walk and found out that it was Aunt Feng who told Ren Qiao openly and secretly that his son didn't look like him, so Ren Qiao had a quarrel with his wife Zhao Xia. This sister Feng is not kind. She likes other men, sows discord, and takes advantage of the chaos to gain power. Not kind, so unkind. When the children were eating, Wen Qiao called Ren Qiao out and had a heart-to-heart talk with him. The general meaning was that you can't doubt your wife without any basis. If you really feel that the child doesn't look like you, then do a paternity test. Ren Qiao still knows what a paternity test is. Aren't those things just on TV? Are those things really reliable? Reliable, you have to believe in medical skills. Can't go wrong. Can't go wrong. Ren Qiao was caught in a tangle, and now he thought of his son's good fortune. His son was cute and liked by all his relatives and neighbors. He was not too noisy, smart and well behaved. If he really checked and found out that he was not his son, how should he choose? Ren Qiao couldn't sleep all night. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1164. It is always rainy in the mountains in autumn, so Wen Qiao naturally shares a room with Fu Nanli. This beast finally let her go tonight. After all, the amount of exercise in 2 days is too much, climbing mountains and running mountain roads, even though Wen Qiao is even the iron can't bear it. The two of them just lay on the bed in the small guest house. The conditions here were very simple. The only advantage was that it was quite clean. Although it was rainy in the mountains, the quilt was very dry, so it was not uncomfortable to sleep. Fu Nanli held the person in his arms and listened to the sound of rain hitting the leaves outside. Wen Qiao asked him, "Do you think that child is Ren Qiao's son?" Fu Nanli raised his eyebrows and looked at the person in his arms through the dim light. "You want me to be an artificial paternity tester? Take a guess." Fu Nanli clicked his tongue. I can't guess. I don't know these people or the couple, so I won't guess. Wen Qiao muttered something boring. On the second day, the rain stopped, and the road paved with bluestones in the mountains was washed by the rain and glowed brightly. Wen Qiao and the others had breakfast at the guest house, and Fu Nanli gave a tip to the boss. After all, I have been inquiring about information from him for the past 2 days. And the tips are generous. The boss was overjoyed and took the initiative to break the news to them. See, you are here for the electrician's family. Is there something wrong? Wen Qiao didn't tell the truth, so he made up a random excuse, and then asked him about the personalities of Ren Chao and Zhao Xia. The boss looked solemn. We were introduced on a blind date and then got married, but Ren Chao and Zhao Xia fell in love freely. They were classmates in high school, fell in love, and got married after that. I think Zhao Xia is quite serious. He doesn't look like someone who would steal people out there. It seems that Zhao Xia's reputation is very good. After going to Ren's house, Ren Chao thought about it all night and seemed to have finally made up his mind. He planned to do a paternity test. Instead of being suspicious, it was better to do a test to reassure himself. Fu Nanli contacted the best hospital in Hangzhou, and then took the Ren family and his son for evaluation. Ren Nian didn't understand anything and didn't know why he went to the hospital with his father. After a series of examinations, the dean told Fu Nanli that the report would be available in 1 day. The group returned to the small village. Wen Qiao felt a little distressed when he saw that the little boy was silent and his big eyes were blank and frightened. He even felt that Aunt Feng was so dirty that she even operated on a child. No matter what the truth is, the child is always innocent. When I returned to the Ren family, Aunt Feng was still busy at the Feng family. Wen Qiao clicked her tongue but didn't say much. As an outsider, she couldn't interfere in the Ren family's family affairs. Wen Qiao and the others sent the person there and returned to the guest house. At the Ren family, Ms. Feng called Ren Chao aside and whispered, "How was the inspection today?" Ren Chao was dejected. "The results won't be available until tomorrow." Feng said in a considerate manner, "If she really isn't Zhao Xia, don't get into a fight with her. Maybe she was too lonely when you went out to take the exam." Ren Chao glanced at her. Feng felt a little guilty. "I feel that Nian is my son, so I feel relieved to have him checked out." Feng's smile was a bit unbearable. "Hey, I think so too. It must be good if you two get along well. After all, the children are so old." "Okay, you can go back." Feng said, "I've prepared the meal. You can eat quickly. I'll wash the dishes for you after you finish." Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me. The boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1165. "No, I'll do the work myself. You can go back." That night, Ren Chao didn't sleep well. He tossed and turned. The next day, someone from the hospital personally sent a report. Wen Qiao and the others were also watching. Ren Chao opened the envelope with trembling hands, and even Ms. Feng came. Of course, she came to see the fun. She only hoped that Ren Nian would not be Ren Chao's son, so Ren Chaoxi and Zhao Xia will definitely get divorced. He also brought the oil bottle with him, so he and she were considered to be the right ones. They would definitely live together when the time comes. She would simply be virtuous, and I believe Ren Chao would not dislike her. Ren Chao opened the envelope. He was not very good at reading such reports, and he had an inexplicable trust in Wen Qiao, so he asked her what she thought. Wen Qiao then leaned over, turned the page, and saw that the probability percentage of father and son was only 0.1%. In other words, these two people are really not father and son. Wen Qiao was shocked. She asked someone to do a paternity test, and even made trouble. She even accelerated the proof that these two people were not actually father and son. She was confused for a moment. Ren Xiao also saw the string of numbers. He also graduated from high school, so he didn't understand anything. He immediately understood that Ren Nian was really not his son. He angrily threw the paternity test report in his hand. Feng couldn't help but smile. Although this outsider didn't know his background, he really helped her facilitate the couple's divorce. According to Ren Xiao's temperament, the marriage is finalized. It happened that the two siblings were out of school, and Ren Xiao stepped forward and raised his hand to slap Ren Nian. The little boy looked at his father helplessly, his eyes were red, and Ren Xiao was not able to do it. These days, he suspected that his son was not his biological son, but he had never beaten him. He basically just verbally reprimanded him. Now that he was sure that his son was indeed not his biological son, he still couldn't do it. He felt that he was too cowardly. Feng stepped forward to sow discord. Ren Xiao, you have helped others raise their son for so many years. It's so unfair. Zhao Xia has gone too far. Wen Xiao finally couldn't help it anymore. Sister, are you too lenient in other people's family affairs? Feng glared at her, thinking that it's none of your business and who are you, but seeing the support of several tall men behind her, she didn't dare to stand up to Wen Xiao. Ren Xiao picked up the report on the ground again and told his daughter in a cold voice, you take care of him first, and I'll go out. Seeing her father's furious look, Ren Tiantian didn't dare to say anything. She just stretched out her hand to pull her brother, looking helpless. Ren Xiao walked out aggressively. Wen Xiao and the others could only follow. Fu Nanli was confused, so this kid is really not his son. Wen Xiao had a headache. Well, it's true that he's not his son. Fu Nanli had never seen such a battle before, and he didn't know what to say for a moment. The group of people almost ran to Zhao Xia's parents' house, and Feng also followed. Wen Xiao was a little speechless. It was too obvious that this person expected bad things from others. Can Ren Xiao like her? The two brothers from the Zhao family seemed to have just come back from the fields. They were still holding up their trousers. When they saw Ren Xiao, they were furious. What are you doing here? Ren Xiao was also angry and roared, where is Zhao Xia? Let her come out. Why are you so mean? You made my sister angry and she went back to her parents' house and I haven't settled the score with you yet. But today you dare to come to your door yourself. Beat me. The two brothers started fighting with Ren Xiao. Qinbei and Songan looked anxiously. Master, do we want to help? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me. The boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1166. Fu Nanli glanced at him. How can you, an outsider, help with other people's housework? When the three of them were fighting fiercely, Zhao Xia came out and shouted, stop fighting. Ren Xiao's clothes were wrinkled and his hair was messy. He rushed to Zhao Xia with a crumpled report and his eyes were red. My son is indeed not my son. Zhao Xia seemed to have been struck by lightning. What are you talking nonsense about? Whose son is it if it's not your son? Wen Xiao could see that Zhao Xia was really confused, not only confused, but also completely aggrieved. See for yourself, I went to the hospital for a checkup and it was written in black and white. There is only a 0.1% chance that Ren and I are father and son. Zhao Xia took the crumpled report tremblingly. When she saw the words, tears burst into her eyes. This is impossible. This is impossible. If you want to divorce me, just say so. You don't need to use such terrible things come and accuse me. How could Nian not be your son? Why is it not my son? You know best in your heart. Who is your son? You also know best in your heart. Zhao Xia was so embarrassed and angry, You are the only man I have, whose son can you be every year? Ren Xiao, what do you mean by this? Do you suspect that I have an affair with another man? In your eyes, I am such people. Ren Xiao was so angry that his words were naturally unpleasant. You know best. Zhao Xia threw the report in her hand. I'll let you see if I am this kind of person. After saying that, he turned around and entered the courtyard. For a moment, everyone was still in a daze. It was Zhao Xia's second brother who came to his senses first and rushed directly into the yard. There were shouts from inside. Wen Qiao and the others hurried inside and saw Zhao Xia holding a tan bottle in her hand. I don't quite understand what it is. Her second brother shouted, she drank pesticide. The group of people suddenly started to rush around, but Su Ce was the calmest. He walked over and said in a deep voice, I am a doctor. I will induce vomiting in her first. Do you have a car at home? After inducing vomiting, she must be sent to the hospital immediately. Yes, I have an electric three-wheeler at home. When Su Ce induced vomiting on Zhao Xia was still able to speak. She stared at Ren Qiao angrily, if I really have another man, tell me to die immediately. Seeing Ren Qiao's hesitation, Mrs. Feng suddenly became a little anxious. Did you really listen to her vow? I did it for you, otherwise why would my son be someone else's? Wen Qiao, shut up, why are you jumping up and down here? Do you really want to see me die? Feng glared at her, who are you, little girl? I am an outsider, aren't you an outsider? It's good that I'm an outsider, but I don't wish others bad things on my face like you. Feng felt guilty. How can I? Just as she was talking, Zhao Xia spat it out with a wow sound. The pesticide was brown, which shocked Wen Qiao. Su Ce said calmly, prepare warm salt water and let her vomit again. The family members hurriedly brought over a glass of salt water. Su Ce took a sip to make sure the concentration was appropriate, and then gave Zhao Xia a drink. After a while, Zhao Xia vomited again, and her face was as pale as paper. Okay, send him to the hospital quickly. He needs gastric lavage. A group of people hurriedly carried Zhao Xia onto the electric tricycle. Su Ce was a doctor and must accompany him. Wen Qiao also had medical skills and was called down by Su Ce to accompany him. Since Wen Qiao followed, Fu Nanli naturally had to follow. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1167. So, it was Zhao Xia's eldest brother who drove the three-wheeler, but there were three strangers accompanying Zhao Xia behind. It wasn't until the car drove out that Zhao Xia's second brother touched the back of his head. Why didn't you even take me on board? Without saying much, he quickly got on his battery car and chased after her. Ren Qiao also hurriedly borrowed a bicycle from his neighbor. Feng wanted to follow, but Ren Qiao ignored her and just kicked off. Feng was so angry that he stamped his feet behind him. His son was no longer his. Even if Zhao Xia died, what should he have to worry about? The mountain road was bumpy. It was the first time for Mr. Fu to ride a tricycle like this. Now he regretted it. Why was he in the fun? What would it look like to be in a suit and tie sitting behind this tricycle? If there wasn't a person whose life was hanging on by a thread, Wen Qiao would have really wanted to laugh at Fu Nanli. He was so out of place, and it was so funny no matter how you looked at it. But Zhao Xia is still lying down, so they still have to show off. After inducing vomiting, Zhao Xia was still conscious and held Su Ce's hand firmly. Doctor, doctor. Just now, I was short of breath, so I drank the pesticide impulsively, but now I realized it, and I was scared again. This is how everyone is. Help me, I don't want to die yet. I still have a daughter and a son. Su Ce said coldly, he won't die. He can be saved quickly and can induce vomiting quickly. The medicine will not enter the stomach very much. Go to the hospital and have his stomach washed. It won't be a big problem. Wen Qiao comforted him, it will be okay. Don't worry. My uncle is a very famous doctor. With him here, you can rest assured. Only then did Zhao Xia feel relieved. The car was driving fast after passing a dirt slope. The bump almost knocked Master Fu out of the car. Wen Qiao quickly grabbed him. Young Master Fu is really in a sorry state. Wen Qiao thought, I really don't lag behind in anything. The experience of electric three-wheelers is not pleasant. I have to follow him and squeeze out my second brother. You are not a doctor. What's the use of following you? Fu Nanli looked unhappy. After finally arriving at the hospital, a gastric lavage was performed. After all the trouble, Zhao Xia's life was finally saved. Feng Shi and Ren Chao also arrived. When they heard that Zhao Xia was fine, Feng Shi whispered, maybe he drank too little and was pretending. Ren Chao, don't be soft-hearted. She was too anxious to stop pretending. Her man has been dead for several years, and she has long been interested in Ren Chao. He is good-looking, strong, and doesn't talk much. She likes this kind of thing. She finally caught Zhao Xia with such a big problem, so what's the point? To sow discord to death. Ren Chao hurried to the door of the ward and saw Zhao Xia lying on the bed with a face as pale as paper. He felt a little worried for a while, but the fact that his son was not his was like a lump in his throat, and he didn't know what to say for a moment. Wen Qiao and the others were outside the ward, leaving Ren Chao alone. Wen Qiao heard Zhao Xia say emotionally, I just slept with you alone, don't I know? Fu Nanli covered her ears to prevent her from hearing this. Ren Chao was also anxious, then where did the son come from? He is indeed not my son. Zhao Xia had just escaped from the gate of hell. She was angry and anxious, with tears rolling down her face. You don't believe me. I told you that I am the only man. How could my son not be yours? What if you want to marry me, just tell me clearly that I'm getting divorced. There's no need to use this false report to falsely accuse me or wrongfully accuse me. When I get better, I'll get the divorce certificate from you right away. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1168. Ren Chao saw that she was crying uncontrollably and her face was ugly. He couldn't bear to say anything for a moment and just muttered, you take care of her first. After leaving the ward, Ren Chao glanced at Wen Qiao and raised the paternity test report in his hand. Could this be wrong? Wen Qiao was also confused for a moment. Generally speaking, you can't go wrong. That hospital is the best hospital in Hangzhou, because Fu Nanli specifically asked it to be done, and the dean is responsible for it. This is not some wealthy family competing for property. There will be people who interfere with it, so there is no reason to make mistakes. But Zhao Xia's strong look really didn't look like she was lying. This was Wen Qiao's perception, but Fu Nanli was indifferent, thinking that maybe the woman was lying. He didn't know Zhao Xia well, so it was possible that he would deny her even to death. Wen Qiao always felt that something was not right. Zhao Xia's two brothers were being taken care of in the hospital, and Wen Qiao took Fu Nanli and his uncle back to the village. This time she not only asked the owner of the guest house, but also asked many neighbors, all of whom were aunties who were particularly interested in such secrets. After asking around, it turned out that Zhao Xia has a very upright style. In the past, there was a man who was not serious and wanted to hook up with others, but she scolded him bloody. She never took advantage of others, and she has always done so. The relationship with Ren Chao is also good. There is no reason for such a person to cheat on his wife and let Ren Kaoxi become his father. Wen Qiao thought of Mrs. Feng. Mrs. Feng was not that capable of doing anything. At most, she discovered that Ren Nian did not look like Zhao Xia, and then she started to make a fuss. Could it really mean that Zhao Xia is different from what she looks like? But such direct evidence was thrown in front of her, and she was still so strong. If she had a little guilty conscience, she wouldn't be so confident. Wen Qiao squatted on the top of the mountain and looked at the red maples halfway up the mountain. He was really melancholy. "Why are you looking so sad?" Fu Nanli squatted beside her and touched her head. Wen Qiao held his chin and looked at him. "I feel like if we don't solve their family's big trouble, Zhao Xia will definitely ignore me. How can we fix this? There must be a road before the car reaches the mountain." Wen Qiao rolled his eyes bluntly. "Isn't that just sitting back and waiting to die? Otherwise, what do you think we should do?" It happened that Ren Tiantian and Ren Nian were out of school and walked over from a distance. Wen Qiao tilted his head and looked at the two siblings, and suddenly grabbed Fu Nanli's hand. Fu Nanli was surprised by her. "What's wrong?" After the two siblings passed by, Wen Qiao whispered, "Ren Nian and Ren Qiao really don't look alike." Fu Nanli clicked his tongue. "Although I can't tell, it seems you don't need to say it. Not only does he not look like Ren Qiao, he also doesn't look like Zhao Xia." Fu Nanli narrowed his eyes slightly. "Really? How did you tell?" "He's not very good at watching this." Wen Qiao seemed to have discovered a new world. He called his uncle and expressed his thoughts. Obviously, Su Ce was not very good at this either. Wen Qiao called number 3 again, and number 3 also. Only Qin Bei and Song An agreed with Wen Qiao and felt that Ren Nian was indeed not like Ren Qiao or Zhao Xia. Wen Qiao suddenly thought of something. Could it be that the child was held in the wrong arms when he was born? It was very possible, but she didn't know whether to tell Zhao Xia or the others about it. If it was really a mistake, would Ren have to leave this home every year? It seems that this little boy really likes this place. Does she have the right to make such a decision for others? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me. The boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1169. But what if you don't say it? If he didn't say anything, Ren Qiao would definitely not be kind to the child, and Zhao Xia was also charged with an unfounded crime. I'm afraid the family would be torn apart in the future. Wen Qiao fell into struggle for a moment. What should I do? Wen Qiao told Fu Nanli his thoughts. Fu Nanli shut her up and said directly, "It's better to tell the truth. There is no need to hide it. Tell the truth. No one is at fault here. No, there are still mistakes. The hospital where the baby was born gave birth to the wrong child. The nurse must be punished." Although Wen Qiao struggled repeatedly, he went to the hospital with Fu Nanli. In the hospital, Ms. Feng was kicked out by Zhao Xia's two brothers. It seemed that she had just been trying to persuade Zhao Xia to get a divorce. He also said that she was unclean, that her style was not good, and that it would be bad for the child's reputation, and so on. Poor Zhao Xia had just finished drinking the pesticide and was already weak. She was so angry at Feng's strange words that she almost couldn't breathe. Zhao Xia's two brothers were so angry that they drove Feng out. Ren Qiao squatted outside the ward, looking helpless. Feng persuaded him in a low voice, "Zhao Xia just can't lose face. She doesn't want to admit it. You can't trust her anymore." Ren Qiao looked pained and didn't speak. Wen Qiao and the others hurried over. She gave Feng a meaningful look, wishing for a divorce every day. This woman really had her scheming written all over her face. Wen Qiao hesitated and said, "Ren Qiao, I have something to tell you. Come with me." Wen Qiao didn't like Feng, so Feng definitely didn't like Wen Qiao either. He felt that this little girl was so ghostly that she didn't know if she was going to give Ren Qiao some eye drops, So she quickly grabbed Ren Xiao and said, "You don't listen to her, I'm afraid Zhao Xia invited this girl here." Wen Xiao held her forehead. "Sister, are you taking too much care?" Ren Xiao's eyes were red, he hesitated, and then walked aside with Wen Xiao. Feng wanted to cause trouble, but was stopped by Qin Bei and Song'an, so Feng could only worry. At the end of the corridor, Wen Xiao hesitated again and said, "Have you noticed that your son is neither like you nor Zhao Xia?" Ren Xiao was shocked speechless by this sudden sentence. How could he possibly find out? Ever since he was instigated that his son didn't look like him, he couldn't do anything, was absent-minded, and confused. How could he have any free time to think about anything else? But when Wen Xiao said this, he suddenly realized, yes, his son is not like him, but he is not like Zhao Xia at all. He was confused. What is going on? Perhaps Zhao Xia and Nian should have another paternity test. Ren Xiao, huh? Which hospital did Zhao Xia give birth? It's at our maternal and child health hospital in Hangzhou, which is not far from here. Wen Xiao nodded, then I'll go talk to Zhao Xia. Ren Xiao stopped her, is it the wrong hug? The results haven't come out yet, so I'm not sure. Wen Xiao went to the ward and said the same thing to Zhao Xia. Zhao Xia seemed aggrieved and cried bitterly. She felt that what Wen Xiao said was possible. She cried that her husband suspected her and that she might have a child. The child was outside, crying even more about her reluctance to leave Ren every year. After all, after raising him for several years and raising him as his biological son, if it turns out that he is not his own child, what will he do? Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiaxu. Chapter 1170. After crying for a long time, Wen Xiao asked her, "Do you want a test?" Zhao Xia wiped away tears. "It needs to be tested, otherwise neither I nor Nian will know." At that moment, Ren Xiao called his home and asked his brother to send Nian over again. Zhao Xia cried as soon as she saw the child. Nian was still young and didn't understand anything. She looked at her parents with trepidation, not daring to say anything, but her eyes were very innocent and aggrieved. Wen Xiao was a little worried when he saw it. The two of them took blood samples separately, and the hospital's express service required the results to be available within 6 hours. The group of people waited at the hospital, including Xiao Nian. After waiting until night, the results came out. The dean came over with the report and gave it directly to Zhao Xia. Zhao Xia didn't dare to open it for a while. Regardless of whether it didn't seem to be the result she wanted. But no matter what, she still opened the report. She wasn't very good at reading it, so when Xiao went up to tell her, the probability that the child is mother and son to her is only 0.1%. It means he is not her son. Zhao Xia burst into tears immediately. She was not happy at all because her grievances had been cleared. Her son had been wrongly adopted. The son she had raised for several years was not her biological son. She felt really mixed emotions. Through the door, Wen Xiao saw the little boy sitting on the bench. It was already 11 o'clock. He was probably sleepy. He tilted his head and was sleeping. Ren Xiao was sitting next to him, but he still pulled him. With his little hands, the little boy lay on his lap to sleep. Regardless of whether he is his biological son or not, he has been raised as his biological son for several years. He must have feelings for him. How can he not feel distressed? As an outsider, she would feel pity for the little boy. Zhao Xia couldn't stop crying. Wen Xiao comforted her, since the hug was wrong, then solve the problem. The hospital must be responsible. Zhao Xia took Wen Xiao's hand. "I think you are capable, can you help me?" "You said, we will definitely help you do whatever we can do. Zhao Xia is also a sensible person, if you can help me, I will definitely fulfill the requests you made before. That means you agree to donate blood. Wen Xiao nodded. You say. I have raised Nian for 5 years, and I really can't bear to let him go. Wen Xiao patted her on the back. Don't worry, I hope there will be a happy ending in the end. Because she gave birth to the child at the maternity and child health hospital in Hangzhou, a small city, the wrong child should have been born in Hangzhou. Even if the two children were reunited, they would still be in Hangzhou and could move around frequently. Wen Xiao comforted Zhao Xia, left the ward, and asked Ren Xiao to take the child home first. Ren Xiao's eyes were red. Can you help me take the child back? I want to stay here to take care of her. Wen Xiao was embarrassed. Then it depends on whether she wants you to take care of her, right? Sure enough, Zhao Xia's second brother came out and said coldly, you don't need to take care of me. There are people in our Zhao family who take care of us. Ren Xiao didn't even talk to Zhao Xia. He left the hospital in despair. The child fell asleep and he was holding it in his arms. Even if he knew something happened at home, he was still a 5-year-old child. He was sleeping now. It's quite heavy. On the way, Ren Xiao couldn't help but sigh, and the other grown men didn't know how to comfort him. Only Wen Xiao still managed to retain some feminine tenderness. You shouldn't doubt your wife. Wen Xiao is also a woman, so she naturally has the ability to empathize.